Hi y'all, it's me again. Sorry I haven't been doing a whole lot of uploading. It's just that I've been busy with finding a job and whatnot in this economy. Ugh. So I've been busy with job interviews and yesterday was so hot that I was just so tired. Okay, so I'm gonna continue reading from my book, The 1900s. Okay. Roosevelt tamed the tycoon. Roosevelt's claim to political stature rests on the speed with which he grasped the essence of presidential power, the ways in which it could be exploited, and the occasions on which it could be successfully used. One such occasion arose in 1902. The railway systems running out of Chicago across the Northwest had been steadily consolidated until by 1900 they consisted of two great groups, one controlled by James J. Hill with the support of John Pierpont Morgan, the other by E. H. Harriman. Hill and Harriman were among the greatest names in the railway world. Morgan was supreme in finance. A ferocious battle developed between the two groups for control of the entire system, a battle which ended in a compromise. All the railways would be brought together under a holding company, the Northern Securities Company, and the contestants would share control and profits. In its nature, this deal was no different from many that had taken place successfully in the past. What made it different, as Roosevelt grasped, was the scale, the size, and reputation of the financial interests involved, and the fact that the public were particularly sensitive to railway mergers. It was Roosevelt's merit to see that the very scale of the merger made the parties involved more vulnerable, not less. There was in existence a law against such mergers, the so-called Sherman Act of 1890. It was a weak law and it had largely fallen into disuse under Cleveland and McKinley. Roosevelt instructed his Attorney General to bring an action against the Northern Securities Company, and when the case came before the Supreme Court, he won a narrow victory. By a vote of 5-4, the justices decided against the company. Justice Holmes wrote the minority opinion, the first of his famous dissents, and a promising friendship with Roosevelt came to an end. The financial world was outraged, but the public applauded. It is doubtful whether the practical effect of his decision on the conduct of the railways was great. It is even doubtful whether that conduct had been particularly bad. Both Hill and Herman, whatever their defects, were dedicated railwaymen, and Morgan personified the rigid, upright tradition of conventional banking. These men were not freebooters. They were too powerful. Where Roosevelt accomplished all he needed to accomplish, perhaps all he wanted to accomplish, was to demonstrate that trusts must make notice of the national interest and that they could be held to account by a sufficiently active and courageous president. Yet Roosevelt was not anxious to undertake suits. His real desire, increasingly so as he remained in office, was to control trusts, not to break them up. He had a keen sense of the value of the country, of the energy and skill of big businessmen. He did not fear or hate or even particularly distrust them. He believed that they needed control and that they would yield to control only when they saw that they could do nothing else. It was above all the task of the president to make that plain. Yet when it was made plain, the practical business of devising means of control remained. Roosevelt's preferred means was the development of control commissions staffed by non-political experts. Here he reflected one element in the progressive movement, the belief in scientific government. He believed that independent commissions staffed by men who knew their jobs and were respected both by the public and by industrialists where would be the best means of controlling industry, and he did so because he believed that the experts would agree among themselves. There's also scientists believe that if you accumulate more factually open-minded men towards agreement was apparent here. The scope of his legislative success shows the limitations which were still felt by most people to be important. He achieved passage of a law giving workmen's compensation to all government employees. But government employees were debarred from the right to strike, and so it could be held needed special protection. And the child labor law in the District of Columbia. But the nation's capital was a federal enclave in which laws could only be made by Congress. Hence, the law implied no enlargement of federal power. He obtained a law compelling the use of safety appliances on the railways, and exercise of federal control over interstate commerce, which roused the public interest in a special way, for almost anyone might be a railway passenger. Please comment, rate, and subscribe down below, and ring that little bell notification so that you can know when I upload. And please like and follow me on TikTok. Okay? And I'm selling stuff on eBay and Mercari, so please buy something from either of those places. Okay? Bye.